turning it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thank you very much. So I would like to make a motion now to approve the minutes of our 5/9/2019 meeting. In order to do that, I would ask one member of the council by wave to be recognized to make the motion. Dave Zeldin, please make the motion.
This is David Zeldin, council member. I make a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Zeldin. I would ask one council member by wave to second Mr. Zeldin's motion to approve the minutes of the May 9th, 2019 meeting. I can't see if anyone's waving, but how about I call on
Anthony Lauro has his hand up.
Sorry, I don't have the grid view for some reason. Mr. Lauro, will you second Mr. Zeldin's motion?
Anthony Lauro, council member. I second David Zeldin, council member's motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Great, thank you, Mr. Lauro. The motion, I assume, passes at this point, but I have to poll now each council member as their vote on the motion to approve these minutes. This is the chairman, Robert Tucker, and I approve the minutes. Mr. Lauro, as the seconder, doesn't need to be polled. Nick Michaelides.
I approve the minutes of the last meeting. Nicholas Michaelides.
Thank you. Mr. Holm. Sir, could you say it again? It was a little broken up. State your name.
This is Bruce Holm, council member. I approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Pansella. Mr. Pansella.
Mr. Pansella
is not present. I apologize. Mr. Oletta.
Nicholas Oletta, council member. I approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Zeldin proposed the approval, so I assume he could be passed. Ms. Johnson.
Jessica Johnson, I approve.
Thank you very much. The minutes are approved, and we will move on to the revocation hearing at this time. Now, as everyone recalls, I have to read a long opening statement that's prepared by DCJS. I'm going to do that. I brought my glasses this time, so Jessica doesn't have to help me. I want to make sure, though, before I start, that you, Mr. Omegon, can hear us.
I'm hearing you.
Good. Okay. Because this is the important part to you, and we want to make sure that you can hear us loud and clear.
Yes, I do.
Good. All right. I'm going to start now, so everybody mute their phones so I can read into the record a long paragraph that you are all the council members are familiar with, but you, Mr. Omegon, are not. And I want to make sure that I read it slowly so you can hear me. And if for some reason you stop hearing me or we get interrupted by internet traffic, just wave like this and I'll stop, okay? Okay. The Security Guard Advisory Council is holding hearings today to determine whether certain security guard training school approvals and security guard instructor certifications should be revoked. I'm Robert Tucker, and as chairman of the Security Guard Advisory Council, I'll be presiding over the hearings. These hearings are subject to the open meeting law and as such are being recorded. Title IX of the New York State Official Compilation of Code, Rules, and Regulations gives the commissioner the authority to suspend the approval granted to a security guard training school and or suspend the certification granted to a security guard instructor pending a hearing to determine revocation. Per section 6028.4, the approval of a security guard training school may be suspended pending revocation by the commissioner at any time. Reasons for such revocations may include but are not limited to, the violation of any applicable rules and regulations or violation of any provisions of Article 7A of the General Business Law. Per Section 6029.7, an individual's security guard instructor certification may be suspended pending revocation by the Commissioner. Reasons may include, but are not limited to, the violations of any provisions of Part 6029 Security Guard Instructor Standards and Qualifications. All parties who are suspended pending revocation are entitled to request a hearing within 15 days of the notice of suspension. We are here today because you have chosen to exercise that right and request a hearing. These hearings will be conducted in accordance with the New York State Administrative Procedure Act, Article 3 of SAPA, set forth procedures for administrative hearings, including timeframes, notice, rules adopted by agencies, argument, and settlement. SAPA delineates the powers of the presiding officer, me as chairman in this matter, and authorizes me to regulate the course of these hearings. As an overview, we'll hear one case at a time. DCJS will first present testimony and evidence as to why they believe that such approvals and certifications should be revoked. Respondents will have an opportunity to question DCJS witnesses after DCJS presents each witness. Then respondents and/or their attorneys may produce any evidence supporting their position. Once respondents have presented their case, DCJS will have the opportunity to question respondents' witnesses. Council members will have an opportunity to question DCJS or respondent witnesses after witnesses are questioned by both parties. This type of hearing is not subject to the same rules of evidence observed in courts of law. I will rule on any objections. SAPA Section 306 specifies that the standard of review here is that the agency's determination must be supported by and in accordance with substantial evidence. Addressing substantial evidence, the New York State Court of Appeals, New York State's highest court, less than a year ago described substantial evidence. It said, "We emphasize that the substantial evidence standard is a minimal standard. It is less than a preponderance of the evidence." Regarding hearsay, the same decision also noted, moreover, hearsay is admissible as competent evidence in an administrative proceeding, and if sufficiently relevant and probative, hearsay is a written or oral statement or even body language that was made outside of the courtroom that is presented within the courtroom. After both parties have presented their case and the council members have concluded questioning, the council will deliberate on whether or not the approvals or certifications should be revoked. The council will deliberate in executive session after each hearing. Executive session means that only the council members will be present during those deliberations. After a determination is made, the council will provide a recommendation on each case to the Commissioner of DCJS. Per NYCRR 6028.4, the Commissioner will make the ultimate decision in the matter. The Commissioner in writing will render his decision and the reasons for such decision within 90 days after the date of this hearing. A copy of this written decision will be sent to you. Finally, before we get started, as a reminder, all hearings are recorded, so please speak loudly so that we can all hear you. Any issue with the audio in my opening statement? Mr. Omega.
I heard everything.
Thank you. Then at this time, I'd like to call case number 412163, Catskill Security Training School. And I'd like to call on Carl J. Boykin from DCJS. Mr. Boykin.
Thank you. Am I being heard? Respondent Omegun wanted the allegations to be included here, so I will summarize them for the record. There are 6. Under 9 NYCRR Section 6027.6, respondents failure to comply with the minimum standards of the 8-hour annual in-service training course. Number 2, under 9 NYCRR Section 6027.11, respondents failure to comply with the requirements for conducting a security guard training course. Number 3, under 9 NYCRR Section 6028.3, respondents failure to comply with the requirements for the approval of a security guard training school, which mandate school owners' good character and compliance with Department of State requirements. Number 4, under 9 NYCRR Section 6028.6, respondents failure to comply with the requirements of the administration of an approved security guard training school. Number 5, under 9 NYCRR Section 6029.3, respondents failure to comply with the minimum requirements of security guard instructor certification. And number 6, under 9 NYCRR Section 6029.7, respondents failure to comply with the restrictions of suspension and revocation of certification. For today, procedurally, in the interest of expediency and through prior discussions, the division and respondent agreed to the admissibility of specified evidence to be offered at this hearing. For the exhibits agreed upon, I will indicate as we proceed. For those to which respondent has objected, I will adopt the formal foundation laying procedure. Regarding the substance of this matter, please keep in mind broadly that this proceeding involves respondent and his dealings with 2 New York State agencies. Number 1, Department of State, Division of Licensing Services, and number 2, the Division of Criminal Justice Services. The matter focuses on respondent status as a director or principal of 3 business entities. 1, Choice Security Company, which, due to respondent's conduct, the Department of State eliminated by revocation. Number 2, respondent's proposed State Security Services, Inc., which, again, based on respondent's conduct, the Department of State refused to license. And number 3, Catskill Security Training Corporation, which is under the authority of the division and is at issue here today, along with respondent's instructor certification. Yes. Because this matter spans years and prior administrative official decisions, we will address exhibits out of order. We will to present the facts in the best and most understandable format. So please bear with us. Mr. Chairman, we're ready to call our witness.
You can proceed.
The division calls Mr. Matthew Griffin.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the council.
Matthew Griffin.
Where do you work?
I work for the Division of Criminal Justice Services.
What is your job title?
I'm a senior training technician, parenthetical police.
How long have you been in that position?
Been since November 2014, so going on 6 years.
Please explain your duties.
In my position, relevant to the security guard program unit, I review school renewal applications and also applications for the establishment of new security guard training schools. I also review applications for instructor certification and renewal. And as part of my position, I enforce the regulations contained in the NYCRR 6027, 28, and 29, conduct investigations, speak with security guard students, and speak with personnel of the security guard training schools. And then I compile those investigations into a memo, and we make recommendations how to.
Generally, how those investigations.
Can you say that again?
Is that generally how those investigations proceed?
Yes.
Is that all part of your normal course of business and duties?
It is.
Mr. Griffin, how did respondent come to your attention in this matter?
In June of 2017, as part of my normal duties, I was reviewing Mr. Omagun's renewal application for Catskill Security Training School. That school has been in business and has been an approved school since April of 2010. And I noticed during that renewal application, they had failed to include his UID number in the area where it calls for the director's UID.
So what, if any, other information could respondent have included in that section?
Historically, Mr. Omagun had used his the UID number from his WatchGuard Patrol Agency license, and that's the number I was expecting to see. However, it was omitted. So my plan was just to transfer that UID number from his 2015 application to his 2017 application to move it along. And prior to doing that, I looked the UID number up on the Department of State website and found that it came back as record not found.
Please explain the significance of the UID number.
Sure. The unique identification number is a Department of State license number issued by the Department of State. And for our purposes, it's the number on a person's security guard registration card, their private investigator license, their WatchGuard Patrol Agency license, an armored car guard card, or an armored car carrier license. It's a unique number that identifies that particular license and those individuals to the Department of State in their system. And all the cards and licensures mentioned require a fingerprint-based background check prior to issuance. And then those fingerprints are flagged on the fingerprint system so that if anybody who is licensed is arrested for a fingerprintable offense, Department of State will be notified and they can commence action on that license, which would be up to and including revocation of the particular card or license. With some exceptions, for certain organizations, the division requires anyone seeking to be a school owner, director, or DCJS certified instructor for either general topics or armed guard courses to possess and maintain one of the mentioned Department of State licensures, because the division relies upon that fingerprint-based background check as an additional vetting of people that are coming into our program.
Please display Exhibit 5. Mr. Chairman, respondent has agreed to admit Exhibit 5 into evidence, which is Mr. Griffin's email request to respondent seeking the UID.
Okay. Do you feel like there's a reason I should be asking Mr. Omagun whether he agrees to that, or are we gonna, Mr. Omagun, when he says respondent agrees, if you don't agree, give me a wait. I will assume that when Mr. Boykin says respondent agrees, that you agree.
Yeah, I agree. I have a unique ID number. I do. I have a license.
Okay. That's not my question, sir. My question, sir, is...
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
You agree. Okay, no problem. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you. Mr. Boykin, please proceed.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, we've agreed to these prior, and there's documentation supporting the agreement for each one that I list. So whenever I say that, it's something that we can document. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Griffin, did you email him the information you requested?
Yes, I emailed him requesting his UID number and mentioned in that email that I had looked up his previous number he'd used and it appears to possibly be expired. And so we're going to need a new UID number or a valid UID number to move the renewal application forward.
Okay, I may have missed it, but I didn't see Exhibit 5. Was that posted?
I'm sorry, Mr. Boykin. I'm not clear on your question. Are you asking Mr. Griffin?
No, I'd asked for the display of the exhibit. Okay, there it is.
Yeah, there, it's up there now.
And that's the email we discussed, right, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, it is.
And please display Exhibit 6. Once again, Mr. Chairman, respondent has agreed to the admission of Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Thank you.
And is that Mr. Omegan's response, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, at the bottom of the screen, it says, this is my new, it just went off. This is my new application. I should be getting the new card back by July 2017. Then he signed it with his name.
Okay, do you have any idea why he would be led to believe he'd receive a new UID from DOS at that time?
Well, in his application for the security guard registration card, he answered no to the question, has any license or permit issued to you or a company in which you were a principal in New York State or elsewhere ever been revoked, suspended, or denied? And he answered no to that one. And also, just of note, he had a secondary application on file for a WatchGuard patrol agency license at this time under State Security Services, Inc. that he had also simultaneously applied for.
Okay, please display Exhibit 4. And Mr. Chairman, respondent has agreed to the admission to evidence of Exhibit 4.
Thank you.
So what happened after that, Mr. Griffin?
Well, after that, we just held the application until the UID was issued, and it was issued. And you can see on Exhibit 4 in that kind of lower right area, you can see my handwriting where I wrote in the number 1001, and it goes on. And with based upon Department of State issuing him a new UID, we, or I should say I, approved the application on August 23rd, 2017. And you can see that at the end of the application by my signature and date.
Okay, please display Exhibit number 1. And while he's pulling that up, Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit 1. Please briefly describe it for the council.
Sure, it's a security guard instructor application for Mr. Charles Omazor that was received by the division.
How is it that you recognize it?
I received that application and was the one that processed it.
Is processing those applications part of your normal course of duties?
Yes.
Other than alteration for the prevention of getting out private information, has it been altered at all?
It has not.
Is that copy a fair and accurate representation of the application at the time you received it?
It is.
Could you please describe both segments of it?
Sure. The first page that you see before you is the one-page application itself that covers, obviously your applicant information, and then their education, experience, and training that they feel qualifies them to be a security guard instructor.
And the second segment?
Second segment that you see is a letter that was sent in support of that application, because we do require, or the applicants can claim points for security guard experience. And to prove those points, we do require an employment verification letter from the employing security agency. And that's what we see here. This is from Choice Security Company, stating that Mr. Omazor had been continuously employed as a security guard with Choice Security from July 20th, 2016 to August 10th, 2017. And it's signed by Mr. Omegan as the president of Choice Security.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's Exhibit 1 into evidence.
So moved.
So what happened after you approved the renewal for Catskill in 2017?
Well, if we fast forward to April 2018, when we received that application that we just discussed, when I received it, I saw that the letter was written on Choice Security Company letterhead, and that it said, he's been continuously employed. So I looked up on the Department of State website because I did not recognize Choice. Plus, I also had remembered from when I renewed the application for Mr. Omegan's school back in 2017 that his old WGPA UID had come up as record not found. So I searched it up on the Department of State website to see if it had been renewed, and I also searched Mr. Omegan up by name to see if the WatchGuard had been changed over to his name.
Okay, so since go ahead.
I'm sorry, both came up as records not found.
Okay, so since you didn't recognize choice, what did you do?
I contacted John Goldman, who is the Deputy Chief Investigator for the Licensing Enforcement for the Department of State, and asked him if he could help me determine if Choice Security Company was a valid watch guard agency that legally employed security guards in New York State.
Please display exhibit number 2. And while they're pulling that up, Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's exhibit number 2. Could you please briefly describe it for the council?
Sure. It's a decision from the Department of State dated November 9th, 2015.
And how did you get
I received it from the Department of State.
Was that in the normal course of your duties?
It was.
Has it been altered at all?
It is not.
Is that copy a fair and accurate representation of the decision at the time you received it?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's exhibit 2 into evidence.
So moved.
Please display exhibit number 3. While he's pulling that up, Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's exhibit number 3. Please briefly describe it for the council.
It's a decision dated May 10th, 2016, addressing Mr. Omegun's appeal of the decision we just discussed in Exhibit 2.
How'd you get that document?
It was sent to me from Department of State.
Was that in the normal course of your duties?
It was.
Has it been altered at all?
It is not.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the decision at the time you received it?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's exhibit number 3 into evidence.
So moved.
Back to Investigator Goldman. What, if anything, did you learn from Investigator Goldman?
I learned through Exhibit 2 and from Mr. Goldman that in 2015, the Department of State, following a hearing, revoked any and all licenses issued to Choice Security Company and Mr. Omegun, and that the Department of State had determined in their investigation of Choice Security Company that they employed at least 8 unregistered security guards.
Okay, so that initial determination by DOS was the substance of the decision in Division's exhibit number 2, and respondents' appeal of that determination, which DOS won, is the decision in Division's exhibit number 3?
Yes.
So what did you do then?
During the summer of 2018, I contacted Charles Omazor, and Omazor verified that he worked for Mr. Omegun at Choice Security and gave me 2 locations where he worked as a security guard.
Please display Exhibit 7. Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit Exhibit 7 into evidence. So you said Mr. Omazor admitted that he worked for Choice.
Correct.
Give a time period?
He parroted the dates put on the letter, the 2016 to 2017 dates. Okay,
so what did you do next?
Well, I contacted Mr. Omegun by email on August 2nd, 2018, and asked him, in light of our learning about the 2015 revocation by the Department of State of Choice Security, to explain how he answered no to questions 5B, which is addressed to prospective school owners, and question 6B, which is addressed to prospective school directors in his 2017 renewal application, which is Exhibit 4. And those questions asked are in verbatim. I'll read them. Has any license, permit, commission, registration, or application for a license, permit, commission, or registration held by you or a company in which you are or were a principal or employee in New York State or elsewhere ever been revoked, suspended, or denied by any state, territory, or governmental jurisdiction or foreign country for any reason?
And so questions 5B and 6B go to either the owner and or the director?
Correct.
Okay, please display exhibit number 8. Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit exhibit 8 into evidence. So, Mr. Griffin, what, if anything, was Mr. Omegun's response?
Mr. Omegun's response was essentially, he stated he did not understand the question. And as you can see in Exhibit 8, if you read through it, He said he thought the questions were related to himself personally or that of Catskill Security Training School.
Okay, and basically that answer is laid out in Exhibit 8 as we see it.
Correct.
Please display Exhibit number 9. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit number 9. Please briefly describe it for the council.
Sure. It's a letter from the Department of State, Division of Licensing Services, dated February 6, 2019, to Mr. Omegun. And it's addressing Mr. Omegun's application for a watch guard patrol agency license for a proposed new company called State Security Services. And it's also in reference to the respondent's status as a Department of State licensed security guard.
How is it that you recognize it?
I received this from Department of State as part of my investigation.
Was that in the normal course of your duties?
Yes.
Other than the handwriting at the top of the typed letter, has the letter been altered in any way?
It is not.
Is that copy of the letter a fair and accurate representation of the letter at the time you received it?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's Exhibit 9 into evidence.
So moved.
What happened next, Mr. Griffin?
Well, my questioning of Mr. Goldman about Choice Security Company and the letter received in support of that instructor application caused the Department of State to investigate further regarding Mr. Omegun's Department of State security guard registration card, which had been issued in 2017, as well as the employment of Mr. Omazor at Choice.
Okay, so what happened regarding his application for State Security Services as a watch guard and his DOS licensing status? Excuse me, security guard status.
Department of State sought to revoke the security guard registration card, in part based on the answers to the revocation questions in our application and the Department of State security guard application, which was Exhibit 9. This Department of State also sought to deny his request for a license for State Security Services, Inc. And this was essentially the substance of the letter in Exhibit 9 to respondent. The letter also noted that the respondent could request a hearing to contest DOS's intentions, and the respondent, who was represented by counsel at the hearing, addressed both matters in a hearing with Department of State.
Please display Exhibit number 10. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit number 10. Please briefly describe it for the council.
Yeah, it's the decision dated September 11th, 2019 by New York State Department of State Office of Administrative Hearings, addressing the Division of Licensing Services intention to deny a respondent's application for the WatchGuard Patrol Agency licensing of state security services and for the revocation of his security guard license.
How is it that you recognize it?
I received it from Department of State.
Was that within your normal course of duties?
It was.
Has that 22-page decision been altered in any way?
It is not.
Is Exhibit 10 a fair and accurate representation of the decision at the time you received it?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's Exhibit 10 into evidence.
So moved.
Okay, so for the council, that decision by Administrative Law Judge Joan R. Saltzman, marked as Exhibit 10, spans 22 pages. Of course, it is available for your review, but I'll have Mr. Griffin excerpt only 2 sentences from the decision. In upholding the determination of DOS, which, number 1, revoked respondent's security guard license, and 2, denied respondent's application for watch guard patrol licensing for state security services, I direct the council to a section of that judge's opinion and conclusion of law located at original page 21 of Exhibit 10. If we could move down to that. Mr. Griffin, could you please read the 2 sentences beginning with the actions of respondent proved here? I believe it's the last paragraph on page 21.
Yes. The actions of respondent proved here were stunningly dishonest. The knowing unlicensed operation of Choice, the unlicensed security guard work, and the submission of demonstrably false statements to 2 New York State agencies on sworn government forms for the purpose of gaining paid work suggest a scofflaw's stance toward the department's regulatory authority that cannot be tolerated.
clarity, Mr. Griffin, the denials in questions 5B and 6B in respondent's 2017 Catskill renewal application were at issue, and that decision contained Exhibit 10, correct?
Yes,
Mr. Griffin, when did you receive that decision?
September of 2019.
Please display Exhibit 11. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit 11. Could you please briefly describe it for the council?
Yes, it's an email that and some supporting documentation that was received by the division from security guard Shakira Smikle.
And when did you receive that?
We received that in September of 2019.
How is it that you recognize it?
It's an email that we received many of these. It's an email sent to the unit inbox for the security guard unit, seeking our assistance in resolving a registration issue with her trainings.
Okay, it's an email plus with supporting documentation. Could you go into that a bit, please?
Sure, and she also attached to the email a flyer from Miracle Security, Inc., where she states she attended training, as well as a receipt that she possessed showing that she had paid for 2 annual trainings. And she also included 2 certificates showing the completion of that training. And those are from Catskill security training. And she expressed some confusion in her email as to why she would have attended Miracle security training on Williamson Avenue, yet the certificates were showing that she attended Catskill security training on Rockaway Boulevard.
Was there any specific effect of those trainings in terms of her registration?
The trainings, one of them did not register correctly, which caused her registration not to renew.
Okay, so has that exhibit, including all of its subcomponents, been altered in any way?
No.
Other than
I did redact some of her personal information, like her email address and all that, but otherwise it's not been altered.
Okay, so did that come to you as part of your normal course of duties?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves, are those documents and the email a fair and accurate representation of them at the time you received them?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's Exhibit 11 into evidence.
So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Griffin, you explained that she said she took the training at Miracle.
Correct.
You specified where it was?
So it was on Williamson Avenue at Miracle Security Training with James. I believe she used the name James Omega as the instructor. And she supplied this in support of that. And I've seen this flyer before. I'm also very familiar with Miracle Security, as they have been involved in some other matters before us, both the council and within our security guard unit. And I am familiar with Pastor Obeabona, and the initials on the receipt that is contained within this exhibit. Unit Supervisor Tom Canning recognized those initials as belonging to James Obeabona.
So you said you're familiar with Miracle Training and Pastor James Obegbona.
Yes.
What, if anything, can you tell us about their status?
Pastor Obeabona's security guard instructor certification has been revoked, as well as the approval of his security guard training school, which was called Miracle Security Training. Both have been revoked at a hearing. It was several years ago now. I believe it was 2015.
Okay. And so do you know why they were revoked?
An investigation in the hearing found that Pastor Obeabona was selling certificates of successful completion through Miracle Security Training.
Okay, so how would respondent know the status of either Miracle's approval of their school or Obeagbona's certification, teaching certification?
Well, for the school at the time, Catskill was on our approved school list, and Miracle Security Training School showed on that same list as revoked status. And also, Mr. Omegun can always, as a school director and owner, we are available to them for any and all questions. So we get fairly routinely, we'll get questions directed our way towards the status of an instructor or of another school. So he could have asked us.
Okay, please display Exhibit 12. Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit Exhibit 12 into evidence, and what it is our internal record from ACADIS showing that both training dates for Shakira Smickle on 4/29/19 and 8/21/19 correspond with Catskills submissions.
So moved.
Mr. Griffin, how does information get from the training location into the ACADIS system?
It is entered by the school director or co-director of the school that the training took place at.
So how would training conducted at Miracle show as having occurred at Catskill?
In order for that to have happened, ACADIS is password protected, and in order to access it to submit any training, you need to have username and password credentials, as it is a secure system. So for someone to have successfully submitted a roster, they would have needed Mr. Omegun's login credentials and a working knowledge of the system. And it's important to note that this system did not exist when Mr. Obeabona was in the program years ago. This system has only been in existence since beginning of 2018.
Okay, please display Exhibit 13. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Divisions Exhibit 13. Could you please briefly describe it for the council?
Yes, it's a memo to file I had written in regard to a telephone interview I conducted with Mr. Wolfie Balday, and Mr. Balday's training that occurred on April 3rd, 2019. He had contacted us because he's not registered correctly, causing him difficulty renewing his registration card.
So you wrote that memo the day of your discussion with Mr. Balday?
I did.
Was that in the normal course of your duties?
It is.
Has Exhibit 13 been altered at all?
It is not.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the memo at the time you wrote it?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Divisions Exhibit 13 into evidence.
So moved.
So, Mr. Griffin, please briefly summarize your discussion with Mr. Balday.
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Balday regarding an annual training attended on April 3rd, 2019. And again, the trainer did not register correctly, and therefore he had difficulty renewing his registration card. And I had asked Mr. Balday where he attended the training and the identity of his instructor for that training.
So what did he tell you about the training?
Mr. Balday stated the instructor was Mr. James, and that the training occurred in the basement of Mr. James' house. He said the training lasted 2 to 3 hours, which is far short of an 8-hour annual. He further stated he attended Miracle for several years and was confused when the training certificates indicated the training took place at Catskill. He said he had never attended Catskill and always trained with Mr. James at Miracle. He also related the same confusion about the certificates to our one of our other staff members, Miss Heather Brown, who works with us at the division.
Do you know how he managed to acquire the certificates themselves?
It's what he received upon completion of the training that he attended. They were given to him by they were given to him, I believe, by Mr. Obeabona at the completion of his training.
So Mr. Balday received certificates for Catskill training at Miracle.
To my understanding, yes.
Okay. So what else, if anything, did he say about that particular training?
He said that prior to contacting us, he went back to Pastor Obeabona and asked him about the issue. And he had also said that since that time, he had learned that Miracle may have been revoked. And that the issue, Pastor Obeabona told him, no, that issue was old and it had been resolved.
Did he say that Pastor Obeabona explained what he meant by resolved?
No, he did not. He just left it at resolved.
So he didn't say that resolved meant revocation?
He did not.
Okay, the Wolfie-Balde internal memo that you showed from you and the Acatus record showing his training with Catskill are included in 13 and 14, right?
Yes.
By the way, Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit Exhibit 14 into evidence, which is the Acatus record showing the training by Catskill for Mr. Balde on April 3rd, 2019.
Thank you.
Please display Exhibit 15. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit 15. Please briefly describe it for the council.
It's a memo to file I had written following a phone interview with security guard Jeffrey Goss, and that was also in regard to an annual training that did not register correctly, causing Mr. Goss to have difficulty in renewing his registration card.
And how did you happen to speak to Mr. Goss?
I called him.
Okay. You wrote that memo the day after you spoke with Goss?
Correct.
Was that in your normal course of duties?
Yes.
Has Exhibit 15 been altered at all?
It has not.
Is the copy of Exhibit 15 fair and accurate representation of the memo at the time you wrote it?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's Exhibit 15 into evidence.
So moved.
Mr. Griffin, please summarize the Goss memo.
Basically, he attended a training on September 7th, 2019 that did not register correctly. And I asked him, where did the training take place? He said he went to Miracle Security Training, and he could not recall the name of the instructor. He just said that he went to Miracle Security Training on Williamson Avenue, and the training was held in the basement of a home. He also told me he attended a training there on September 9th, 2019, but that training had been registered with the Department of State. And he too noticed that the certificate showed the training took place at Catskill Security Training on Rockaway Boulevard, but he stated to me he had attended the training at Miracle Security on Williamson Avenue.
Please display Exhibits 16 and 17. Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit Exhibits 16 and 17 into evidence. 16 and 17 are 16, the Catskill training certificates for Goss, and 17, the Acatus records reflecting Goss's training at Catskill.
Okay.
Please display Exhibit 18. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit number 18. Please briefly describe it for the council.
It is a letter I wrote and we sent to Mr. Omegon, and it's a suspension pending revocation letter. In other words, it's advising him of the investigation, our findings, and our intent to suspend his security guard training school and his instructor certification pending revocation.
And making clear that he could have a hearing fee so requested.
Correct. Yes.
You wrote that letter?
Excuse me?
You wrote that letter?
Correct. Yes.
Is that part of your normal course of business?
It is.
Has that copy of the letter been altered in any way?
It is not.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the letter at the time you sent it to respondent?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division's Exhibit 18 into evidence.
So moved.
Mr. Griffin, to clarify, as you said, respondent was suspended pending revocation under your letter, correct?
Correct.
Please describe what the terminology suspended pending revocation means.
Well, I'll quote it from the letter, but in short, it's suspending their ability to teach security guard training courses and utilize their security guard training school. From the letter, upon receipt of this letter, the approval of Catskill Security Training School and your security guard instructor certification are suspended pending revocation. The school shall not operate as an approved security guard training school or conduct any approved security guard training courses or programs in accordance with General Business Law, Article 7A, which is the Security Guard Act, Section 89N, and you shall not instruct any approved security guard course or program. So again, it's basically suspending their ability to conduct security guard training pending a hearing of the revocation.
So neither can he teach as an instructor, nor can his school conduct approved trainings.
Correct.
Please display Exhibit 19. Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit Exhibit 19 into evidence.
Thank you.
So what, if anything, occurred after you mailed the suspension letter to respondent?
We send them certified return receipt requested. So we received tracking information on the letter and then received this green card that Mr. Omegun would have signed when he received the letter.
And so from the documentation, does it, the actually earlier typed documentation, if you move up the display a bit, does it make clear when the person who's attendee would have received it?
It does. It says that November 4th, it's available for pickup. November 5th, it's listed as delivered to the sender, which must be USPS language. But November 5th, it was delivered to Mr. Omegun.
Okay. And so you have Mr. Omegun's signature on that green card.
Correct.
And that letter made very clear that neither he nor his school could conduct business approved by DCJS.
Correct.
Please display Exhibit 20. Mr. Griffin, I'm presenting what's been marked as Division's Exhibit 20. Please briefly describe it for the council.
Sure. It's a memo to file that I authored after speaking with Security Guard Winston Murray concerning 2 annual training certificates that Mr. Murray had faxed to the Department of State Division of Licensing Services. And the personnel at that agency then sent those certificates to us for validation.
Why did you interview Mr. Murray?
Because the certificates that we were sent are 2 annual training certificates from Catskill Security Training, and they are dated November 9th and 11th, which is approximately a week after Mr. Omegun was made aware that Catskill Security Training was suspended pending revocation.
Okay, so the memo that you wrote to Mr. Murray, was that part of your normal course of duties?
It was.
You wrote the memo the same day of your interview with Mr. Murray?
I did.
Has that exhibit been altered in any way?
It has not.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the memo you wrote on January 21, 2020?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, the division moves Division Exhibit 20 into evidence.
So moved.
Please display Exhibit 21. Mr. Chairman, respondent agrees to admit Exhibit 21 into evidence. It contains copies of Catskill certificates for training for Mr. Winston Murray, one training, the 8-hour annual dated November 9, 2019, and the other dated November 11, 2019.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Griffin, could you please summarize the substance of Exhibit 20, though?
Yes. The substance of it is that Mr. Murray, when I interviewed him, stated he did attend training on November 9th and November 11th for the 2 classes. They did not register with Department of State because they could not have been submitted by Mr. Omegun. So he faxed the certificates to Department of State. And I informed Mr. Murray at that time that Mr. Omegun's school was suspended pending revocation, and therefore the 2 certificates that he held were invalid and that he would have to repeat the classes at an approved security guard training school.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mr. Chairman, no further questions for this witness?
Thank you very much, Mr. Griffin. At this time, would you like me to ask the respondent if he has any questions for this witness?
Please, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Then, Mr. Omegun, can you hear us? Mr. Omegun, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. So
Great. And did you hear everything that Mr. Boykin just said?
yes.
Good. And did you hear the answers to the questions he asked of Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Great. Do you have any questions for Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Griffin. Is the letter the State Department of State said they sent me for deny of my application with the state. That is Exhibit 9. I never received that letter. They never sent that letter for me for a hearing. I would attend the hearing. So I never received the letter. And the way they treated me with the Department of State was I don't know. So I figured out that I was not treated well. And I also, I have a company called Choice Security Company to register.
One second. Before you move on to the next point,
I agree. The letter, Exhibit now, I never received it from the State Department of State.
Mr. Griffin, do you know the letter that the respondent is speaking about?
I'm looking up right now, Mr. Chairman. I believe it's a Department of State letter.
It's marked in evidence.
Yep, I have it in front of me now, sir. It is a Department of State letter. It's the letter that is advising Mr. Omegon of Department of State's intended actions that resulted in the hearing that took place later on in 2019. So, Mr. Omegon, I cannot speak to a Department of State letter as far as you getting it or not, because we're a different entity. We're Division of Criminal Justice.
That's fine, Mr. Griffin. Hang on one second. Mr. Omegon, is this the letter that you claim you never received?
Yeah, I never received that letter. By surprise, when Mr. Boykin sent it to me, I was treated badly with the Department of State.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute, sir. I just want to make sure we're not talking past each other, that we're talking the exact same thing. So can you see the letter on your screen that we're talking about right now, dated February 6, 2019?
Yes, sir, I saw it.
And this letter is the letter you claim never to have received until you received it when?
When Mr. Boykin sent it to me. Because I always respond to every letter that I receive, because I run a company, I have family, my children, they are in college, so I don't play with anything.
Understood.
Yes. So I would have respond, I would have request for a hearing. I never received that letter.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do you have any other questions of Mr. Griffin?
No, I don't have any other question.
Of Mr. Griffin.
The other one, the question I have is...
Well, we're only asking Mr. Griffin questions right now, sir, based on the testimony that he just gave. So your first question is appropriate because we gave testimony about a letter that you now claim you didn't see until Mr. Boykin showed it to you. Any other questions that are relevant to the testimony that was just given by Mr. Griffin?
No.
Okay, so sit back for 1 second.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this is how this has to go. Mr. Boykin, the respondent has no further questions for Mr. Griffin.
Okay, then we're ready for Mr. Omegon's case. However, Mr. Chairman, the letter in Exhibit 9 was what generated the actual hearing in Exhibit 10.
Okay, we're going to get to all that. I understand that also, but let's just proceed. I want the respondent to have an opportunity to be heard, and he did. His claim that he did not receive the February 6th letter is on the record. He has no further questions for Mr. Griffin. So at this time, where are you in your case?
We're asking for respondent to put his case on if he has any.
Good. Mr. Omegon, it's your turn, sir. And I want you to have a full and fair opportunity, as Mr. Boykin and the Division of Criminal Justice Services just had, to tell us, the members of the council, your case. You have the floor, sir.
Oh, I have an office here where I run my business. That period, after the revocation of my security guard license and my security,
I'm hesitant to do this, sir. Can you hear me? I'm hesitant
yeah,
to, but
yeah.
if it's okay,
on
no,
exhibit,
sir, I have a question for you. Are you in the room alone?
no, I'm here with Obayagbona James as my evidence.
Never mind. Keep going,
Yes.
sir.
Okay.
You don't have to
disagree with Exhibit 2. I disagree with Exhibit 1 because actually I wrote that letter for Charles Omozori because I have another company I register in Connecticut license to do security job license, and I explain all this to the judge that that company is called Choice Security Company, that it was that company he worked for. So that was the reason I gave him that that letter, that he worked under that company. But then still insisted that it was Choice Security Company in New York. The Exhibit 2, I disagree with it because all the decisions they said in this Exhibit 2, I never attended the hearing. I never attended it. But when I read the rules, when they call you for a hearing, before they make a decision, they're supposed to send a second notice, which they never did. And when I applied for the appeal, they denied my appeal. I figured that was not the proper way to conduct a hearing, because I read the rules and regulations, because we have to take tests before you give this license. According to the rule, if you summon a company for hearing, first hearing, and if he didn't come, he's supposed to send the second notification, then before you can make a decision. Then just make their decision based on their first notification. Exhibit 4, when after the letter, I received a letter from Mr. Matt Griffin, said what happened, that if my license was revoked. So I called my lawyer. My lawyer said, yeah, you can make a change if you can make a change. And I quickly sent a new application, which was dated that was 6 on the June 10, 2020. I quickly sent it to Mr. Griffin. So I agreed to that I sent a new application. But my lawyer said, when you made a mistake on application, you can do amendment. Under law, you can make an amendment and correct it, which I did, but they never buy it from me, and they insisted that my license should be revoked. For the Exhibit 5, I agreed to it because Mr. Griffey was very nice, and he said, I told the council after the whole said if I have a unique ID number, I quickly said, please, can you give me a time, and I apply to Department of State. And Department of State gave me new security guard license, which will not qualify me, and I have a number, and I send it to him, and he renewed my license. That was 2007. Exhibit 6, I agreed to it because Mr. Griffin renewed my application with my new unique ID number, which I get. That was the one that I was using. Then Exhibit 7, I also agreed to it because Mr. Griffin wrote me this letter and contacted me. That was in 2018. Exhibit 8, I agreed to it that Mr. Griffin wrote me a letter, which then when I say no for the application, then I quickly mark yes, correct it. Because I spoke to my lawyer, he said, write a new application and correct it and say yes. And I did, and I sent it to him. He agreed that he saw the letter. Exhibit 9, I never received this letter because if I received it, I would schedule a hearing the same way I scheduled this hearing because I said sometime when you don't speak, people don't listen. So I schedule a hearing for this, which I never received this letter. Then I surprised that Mr. Griffin showed it to me. Then Exhibit 10, I disagree with the decision the Department of State made on this. I'm a very honest person. I never be dishonest. Then trying to discredit me, and which is not true. So I disagree with it for the decision they make on this hearing. So Exhibit 11, I disagree with this, that this guy took a training with me. Mr. Obaiwana sent him Exhibit 11. He have a security guard company, watch guard and patrol company, also called Miracle Security. So we work with many security companies that if they have, they should be sending their most of the clients to us so that we can be training them, which I was doing. So when he sent them here, I put them in the class and I train them. And I work with him because the guy made a mistake, said he have a security training school. No, he also have a company called Miracle Security, Watch Guard and Patrol. And he also was having a Miracle Security training school. He called it the same name, just like when I call my company in Connecticut, Choice Security Company. I was trying to explain to that judge in nearby from me. I show him the license, and that license I still have. So for the receipt, most of the time, some of the student is sent to me in exhibit 11. Yes, a receipt he issued to Mr. Shekire Soman for $120. Sometimes he will send them to me and said, after training, he will give me the money. So normally then when they get back to him, they give the money to him. He will just give them receipt for me. Then for the exhibit 12, I agreed to it because I was the one who entered his data in the system. And the department approved it. Exhibit 13, I disagree to it because this guy, he didn't know what he was talking about. Because most of my students comes here and do their training. I'm never get in trouble before, but I've been an instructor having my school since 2010. I've never done anything like that before. So Exhibit 15, I disagree with it because Mr. Goes, I have his record here because most students coming here, I just take their record, I make them sit down, train them, then leave. But sometimes they're very impatient to come and let me check it on their computer. They start screaming and screaming. So SZB 16, I agree to it. I issue those certificates. Those certificates were issued by me. SZB 17, I agree that I enter their data into the pointer of the department, and the department approved their training. So Exhibit 18, I disagree with it because I disagree with it when I received this letter from Mr. Matthew Grieve. I said I must come to a hearing. That was the reason I disagree with the letter, because I said that I should be given a chance to explain myself, which I'm doing right now. Exhibit 19, yeah, I agree. I received the mail and I called him. That was the time we started exchanging phone calls and addressed it. And before this COVID time, so the COVID now making it so long, we couldn't do nothing. We were home. I was scared. Thank God that I'm still alive to answer the hearing. For the Exhibit 20, I disagree with Mr. Winston because some of them, when they don't get when they renew their license, they don't get it on time, they start calling everywhere, which I disagree with him. You know, I don't know, because his record of Mr. Winston, that I don't recognize, because many students comes in here, I keep their records. Because the department shut down my system, I couldn't look his name on the system. So I don't recognize him. That's why I disagree with him. I agree to the certificate because that's my signature, but I don't know how those signature, I got the certificate for November 11th. So that's my testimony. My witness is here, Mr. Obayiwana. That's why I insisted that he will come to give his own testimony that he don't run his school, but he have a company which he refer people to me. Because I have many security companies like that who send their employees to me for annual training, which I'm be doing for close to 10 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. Would you like to ask your witness any questions that you want the council to hear?
Okay.
Testimony from your witness?
Mr. Tucker, I would just wonder if maybe Mr. Boykin could do any redirect?
I thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yes, Mr. Boykin, do you have redirect on the direct testimony of the respondent?
Oops, I meant cross.
Sorry. Do you want to cross-examine this respondent, Mr. Boykin?
That's one question, basically, well, a series, possibly. Mr. Omegan?
Yeah.
You said you never received Exhibit 9, right? The letter from the Department of Licensing Services?
I never received it.
Right. You said if you did get it, you'd have requested a hearing, right?
Yes, I will request a hearing the same way I requested a hearing from you, because I insisted that I have to hear my testimony. I never received that letter from the department.
So what you would have wanted from Exhibit 9 would be to be able to have a hearing, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, and you did have a hearing in Exhibit 10, right?
Yeah. I have a hearing on Exhibit 10, which I never agreed the way it was judged, because I figured out that I was treated in a very wrong way, that I hired a lawyer and I told this judge that my kids are in college, I need money, and this is still end up revoked, not only deny the license, and they revoked my security license. So I was treated badly, and I was not happy about it, the way I was treated. So before the COVID now started. So the COVID now started, I reapplied for my license again. They give it to me. I got my license back because the hearing was on the 6th. And this judge hold on to my case for June, July, August. I didn't hear back from him September. Thinking when I hear back from him, it was going to be good. He delayed my judgment in September 9 to give me a case that both my license was revoked. So I didn't do nothing, but I just stayed and waited patiently and reapplied last September, and then got my license back. So now I have my unique ID number.
Thank you, Mr. Omegan. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boykin. Mr. Omegan, would you like to ask any questions of a witness that you speak of, that you have, that we haven't seen yet? And who is the witness?
Mr. James Obayagbona. He is the director. Pastor James Obayagbona. He is my key witness. He is the one who owns Miracle Security Company, a watch guard and patrol company. So he's here, Mr. James.
Nice to see you, Pastor. How are you?
How are you?
Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Would you like to testify on behalf of Mr. Omegan as he says you're a witness. Mr. Omegan, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yeah, Mr. Pastor Obayagbona, I wanted to know, were you not the one who were sending those security guard of yours to me for training?
Yes. What I was doing for Mr. Omegan was to send clients that were my former clients to him for training. They come, some of them were with me for years. So because I'm a pastor now, I have my own church. I don't really have time for all this business that I'll be converted. It's church business, ministry business I concentrate on now. So when they come, I send them to Mr. Omegan for training. That's the only thing that I do. I don't do no training. I send it to them. I don't know why all these people keep on telling they were my former client, but now I refer them to Mr. Omegan for training. That's what I do. That's the only thing I do for them.
And since you'll be referring them to me, most of your clients,
yeah,
and I'll be doing their training.
Yes.
Have you ever had problem with anyone?
No, never had no problems with anyone. When they come, I refer them to them. He gave me a card. I give them that card to go to that training school for training. That's what I do.
Thank you,
referral. I was a referral service. That's what I do.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Mr. Omegan. Do you have any further questions of your witness?
No, I don't have any question anymore.
Right. Mr. Boykin, would you like to cross-examine the witness?
Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
No,
Pastor Bona,
Bucky. He's talking to Bucky.
Pastor, you've appeared before this council before, right?
Yeah, sure. I used to have a training school.
And you were revoked, right?
Yes.
So you haven't had any training since then, have you?
Since I was revoked, I refer people to different training school when they come to me.
No, my question was, have you trained anybody at Miracle since you were revoked?
Why should I train people when I don't have the license? I don't train nobody.
My question, my question, Pastor Obegbona, is have you trained anybody at Miracle since you were revoked in 2015?
No.
No?
Yes.
So your teaching certificate and your school approval were both revoked, right?
Yes.
So you
I
know
don't do training, no training at all, period.
So you know that you can't conduct any training.
Yes, I don't conduct no training.
And so from the exhibits we presented with the witnesses saying that they were trained at Miracle in the basement of your house and how they administered the training, how you were upstairs and conducted the trainings and came downstairs and gave them certificates.
That was in the past, not now. That's when I had the certificate, in the past, not now. What I do when my license was revoked, I send them to different schools, like Omogo School. That's all I do. I don't do training.
But Pastor Obegbona, these witnesses are talking about what happened in 2019.
Well, after the revocation, I stopped training. I don't do training.
Oh,
I don't do.
Could there be
I don't do training.
Could there be a misunderstanding as to when your revocation went into effect?
Did they what? Question? Ask that question again.
Let me ask the question.
Okay.
Pastor, when was your revocation put into effect? Do you know?
That was about 10 years, close to about 10 years ago. I'm not quite sure of the dates, but I know it's long ago, quite a while ago.
Mr. Boykin, what was the date of the pastor's, if you have it handy, what was the date of the pastor's revocation?
The exact date, I don't know, but it was in 2015.
Okay. So it's about 5 years ago, a little more.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A little more than 5 years ago. Are you saying, sir, that in the last 5 years you've conducted no training? Is that what you want the council?
Why should I conduct training when my license is revoked? I cannot do that. I'm a pastor.
No, I understand, sir, and I respect that. I'm just asking you, just for clarity,
Yes.
in the last 5 years, have you conducted any trainings?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Boykin?
Mr. Chairman, the commissioner's decision was dated June 22, 2015 for the revocations. So we could probably safely assume somewhere around that time. But given his testimony, could I recall Investigator Matt Griffin?
Sure. Mr. Griffin, are you still here and listening to this?
I am.
Mr. Griffin, have you come to any other knowledge other than the exhibits we've submitted today regarding the conduct of training at Miracle?
Yes, we looked up Miracle Security online, Googled them, and came across their website, which was miracle4security.com. And we have found a frequently asked questions section in there. And one of the questions was, do you guys do training? And they said, yes, we do the 8 and 16-hour training classes. Further, in a previous action that we brought against another school called Page Security Training, we presented as evidence Google Earth images of Pastor Obeagbona's home.
Okay, I don't really want to go so deep because Pastor Obeagbona is not on trial here. He's just a witness, and his whether he taught a class or not, frankly, is not what we're here to consider. We're here to consider Mr. Omegon's. All this is doing is impeaching his credibility. So he's not on trial here. So we don't really need to go deep on this. It's a long hearing to begin with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions.
Good. Pastor, thank you very much. It's nice to see you, and I'm glad you're healthy.
God bless you.
Thank you. Mr. Boykin,
He can leave. You don't. He's going to funeral to conduct a funeral. Pastor, Mr. Pastor is leaving. He can go.
1 second, Mr. Boykin. Any reason we shouldn't let the pastor go?
No.
Good, Pastor. Thank you very much, sir.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, the sign, no? The other key. The red one is for the men. For the men, that's for woman. Yeah. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. Thanks for having him. Mr. Boykin, anything further of the respondent?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Omegon, do you have anything further that you'd like to present, or is that your case and do you rest?
No, I don't have anything. The only thing I'll tell the adversary is put me into consideration. And this is the time of COVID. I've not been making money most to put me so that to just since I've not been teaching since November to put me into consideration, and that's the only thing to plead with the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Boykin, anything from you, sir?
Just number one, that we move all the prosecution's exhibits into evidence, including the allegations and respondent's letter at the end of the hearing book, including the contents of the hearing book. Also, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty clear, given the statements by the written statements by the judge in the administrative hearing and the witnesses who stated that clearly that they were trained at Miracle, that there seems to be dishonesty, or I'll retract that, something that doesn't quite fit. So the students are saying that they were trained there. They were contacted independently of this action, and we didn't actively go out seeking for them. They came to us. They had these issues. Other than that, I'll rely on the record, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do any members of the council have any questions of Mr. Omegon? Now, again, I'm stuck because I can't see if anybody's waving. Is anybody waving?
I do not see anyone, and the council members, even if you don't want to wait, if you have a question, please unmute yourself and you can ask a question, just start to speak.
Okay, then I'm going to assume that that's the case, and it's Mr. Omegon has nothing further, and Mr. Boykin has nothing further, and none of the council members have any questions of Mr. Omegon. So I think at this point we'll make I'll need a motion to go into executive session, reminding every member of Ms. Johnson. Are you going to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much.
You're gonna have to do it, unfortunately, in the format that I asked. You're gonna have to state your name, member of the council, and make the motion.
Understood. Jessica Johnson, council member. I move that we move into executive session.
Great. Could I have a council member second Ms. Johnson's motion?
David Sheldon, council member, I second the motion. Jessica Johnson, that we move into executive session.
Great. Thank you very much. Then I would ask the staff to again, it's going to be complicated. We're going to get every member of the staff off of this. We're going to stay on. The members of the council are going to stay on. When we're done in executive session, oh, I'm sorry. Before I do that, I want to poll all the members of the council to go into executive session. So I'm Robert Tucker. I'm the chairman, and I move to go into executive session. Mr. Mr. Lauro.
Anthony Lauro, council member. I also concur.
And do you move us into executive session, Mr. Lauro?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Michaelides. If you would state your name as a member of the council and move us into executive session.
Nicholas Michaelides, I'm a member of Executive Council. I'd like to move into executive session.
Thank you. Bruce Hume. Bruce.
I move to go into executive session.
And could you just state your name for the record?
Bruce Holm.
Thank you. Mr. Oletta.
Nicholas Oletta, council member. I move that we move into executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zeldin.
I seconded the motion, but yes, this is David Zeldin, council member, and I move that we move into executive session.
Good, and I know Jessica did too. Jessica, just say it again, just for complete clarity.
Jessica Johnson, council member, I agree. Yes, let's move into executive session, please.
Great. Would the members of the staff put the council into executive session?
Yes, Mr. Tucker, if we could just let Mr. Omegon, just remind him that, Mr. Omegon, at this time, you will also let him know that he will be moved off also, and that the commissioner will be sending him a decision after we hear from the recommendation from the council.
Great. Mr. Omegon, do you understand that?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for being here, sir, and being so cooperative in this very unusual setting that we're conducting this hearing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay healthy and well.
You too. Thank you.
Good. You can drop off, or we can disconnect him.
Yeah, Chairman Tucker, he just dropped off. So here's just the brief process. All the council members, just sit tight for one moment. I'm going to place every other attendee in what we call the lobby. They're locked out of the meeting. I'm going to ensure that all the council members are unmuted. I'm going to bump myself out of the meeting as well. The recording will be stopped. And at that point, when the council is ready to come back into the meeting and leave executive session, I just need someone to email or text me saying you're ready to come back.
And just give me the number to text, because I have Tom Canning's phone number to call him, but just tell me the text and I'll text.
518.
Right.
257.
257.
Yep. 0704.
Okay, good. Right. I'll text you, Todd.
Okay, one moment, please. I'm sorry for the delay. Just I have to ensure that everybody is out. Okay, I will be dropping off, and you will hear a message now saying that the recording is going to stop.